Hey everybody, this is Perch. I think you can get lost kind of trying to get into the reason behind things, and you miss the big picture. But man, with that preface in mind, let's get to this mail. It says, "Hey Perch, I usually enjoy your show, but I am aggravated and frustrated with you about one thing. You often seem to dismiss a lot of the problems that the comic industry is having as foolish or mistakes, as opposed to what they actually are: evil. Many of the people running comics today are evil. I know you don't believe this, but it's true. Comic professionals, comic editors, are determined to ruin a hobby that for years have brought many people enjoyment. Why are they doing this? For diversity reasons, for inclusion reasons, but mainly because they hate white people. This is evil. It's racism, and it's what they do. I'd like to hear you respond to this, because I think you still continue to dismiss true evil acts with stupidity, and I don't understand it. And that's the mail. So, I mean, here. So I guess you can come at this from a bunch of different angles. You're right. Full stop. I do not believe. I mean, unless we're playing around with the term evil. I do not believe that the actions of comic publishers and several people who work within comics are evil. I do believe that many of the problems and things you see are either incompetence, sometimes laziness, sometimes a result of a business model that basically disincentivizes anyone from really digging in and caring. If you have a structure that basically encourages short-term thinking, you get a lot, and you don't pay well. You're going to get a lot of people who, go along with that. They get the job done for today. They don't think about it for the rest of the day. So they do. Um, in terms of ruining a hobby, I mean, again, it's motive. I don't know. I don't believe that there's people setting out to purposefully ruin a hobby. I don't think they wake up in the morning and go, I'm here to ruin the hobby. Now, I think some of the actions, particularly short-term thinking, bad incentive programs, variant covers, all that, catering to a speculator market that everybody knows is going to collapse at some point, that's stupid. It's stupid, and it is going to collapse parts of this. And look at it this way. A contraction inside the comic industry is absolutely coming. There is not a world where you can have 450 odd comics coming out every month, printed, sold in a store where the majority of them are not carrying enough of a profit to make it meaningful. That absolutely is imminent. It's happened. It's definitely going to change. And you can look at that in many different ways, but one way to look at it is, hey, what if there were a bunch of up and comer, really amazing artists and writers? Think about the people you love, whether it's, from whatever era, whether it's an Art Adams, a Walt Simonson, a Jim Lee, a Rob Liefeld, a Brian Hitch, Michael Mignola as an artist, maybe more recent, maybe it's a Sean Murphy, Greg Capullo. You like those artists. Those artists came up from somewhere, and in many cases, those artists worked on indie books. And if there's a massive contraction in the industry, there's going to be less opportunity for a lot of these new up and coming artists to kind of cut their teeth in the business and become great. There's just less opportunity for that to happen. And that's a shame. A contraction to the industry does basically ensure that several of those people are going to, never get their start. We're never going to see them. Same thing with writers. So, I mean, you can look at it a bunch of different ways, but do I think it's evil? Do I think it's purposeful? I mean, you could call actions evil. If you are driving down the road and you are on your cell phone, and unlike me, you're not using hands free and everything else, which gets people to bitch about the audio. But let's say you're holding it up and you're distracted and you're playing a game and you're not paying attention to where you're going and you're drunk, and you drive your car and kill some people. Is it an evil act? Yeah, I think you'd classify it as an evil act, but you can't say that the person who was doing that set up and started the morning saying, I'm going to kill some people in my car today. That's not how it did. Their actions of incompetence caused the problem. I think that's that's not an ideal analogy for what's going on in comics, but it fits it better than the idea that there is a, you know, dedicated, conceited effort, per your mail, against white people that is playing out in comics as, you know, vicious and evil. Does that mean that some of the creators who are in comics will write things like, you know, get rid of the white people, or hiring a new job, white people need not apply, or that kind of, you know, and is that racist? I would say so. I've heard the excuses the other direction of like, no, we're just trying to balance the scales, etc. But, you know, when you start basically try to gate things by skin color, yeah, that to me tends to be the definition of racism. That's what I've always believed. So I think you can pretty it up by saying, well, but there's these extenuating circumstances. But quite frankly, that's what racists have been doing for hundreds of years. There's always some extenuating circumstance. Like, oh, they like to be slaves. I mean, sure, okay, whatever you say, pal. The idea of saying, I'm not racist, I'm just, you know, doing everything I can to get white people fired, or not hired for this job because, you know, it's equality. We need more fairness. Again, pretty it up any way you like. It's still racism. But be that as it may. Um, Look, I think, but I started the video out by saying sometimes we dig too much for the reasons behind things. And the reality is this. Hey, look, if you were in charge of the comic, you know, a comic publisher, if you're in charge of Marvel, and I came to you and said, hey, you know, here's your team. Now, you're new here, you're running the company, so, you know, excited, welcome to your first day. You know, we want you to be very successful. We've got big hopes for you. Definitely have big revenue targets that you need to hit. So, you know, lots to do. By the way, 90% of your staff is, you know, incompetent. They're you know, grossly incompetent. In fact, there's severe mental deficiencies in your staff. You know, several of them, you know, can't drive. They are incapable of dressing themselves independently. They're terrible. They're terrible. But they're all nice people. None of them are evil. They're all incompetent. But none of them are bad people. You know, salt of the earth individuals. Just some of the best, you know, best people around. But you know, they are incapable of performing even basic tasks. Now, if you were to hear that, would you go, well, thank God they're not evil. All right, let's get to work. No, you'd probably be concerned. So my comment to you, or my challenge to you is, if you're running a business and you're trying to be successful in it, does it really matter? I play this game with, I mentioned this before, called Stupid or Evil. And this is where you try and, you know, you basically, you look at a situation and go, okay, was that person stupid or evil? This is kind of what's playing out with the current, or the, I guess, the former president of the United States, as the news agencies and, you know, various bloggers and others are trying to play this game of, oh, Trump had some documents in his home. There's a third option here, by the way, which is, it's all set up. But the options that a lot of them are playing is like, well, you know, it's not just gross incompetence. It's true malicious criminal evil intent. And they're making this argument as if, like, well, I mean, it would be fine if it was just stupidity. I mean, do you want the leader of the free world to be a moron? Like does it, to me, it's like, does it matter? I mean, I guess it does if you you know, from a criminal standpoint, if you're going to prosecute and everything else, you got to get to the bottom of it. But at the end of the day, you're like, people are like, there's no way I would vote for Trump now. He's evil. It's like, so you're okay with gross incompetence, but not evil. I mean, you know, with comics, I think that, you know, when you're running a business, you know, you need people who are capable of running that business. And if you have somebody who is, you know, flatly, grossly incapable of running the business, look at it, maybe a really nice guy. If the guy does not understand, you know, the publishing business, you shouldn't have that person, no matter how nice they are, you shouldn't have that person there. And yeah, there are people in comics, absolutely, who have jobs that they're not qualified for. And that's the hard part. Several of them are nice people. You meet them, they're like, Oh, you're delightful. It's not like everybody is like the worst people you see on Twitter. Many people are just really good people. They do not know how to do the job they currently have. I'm not talking the creatives in this case. I understand art is subjective. I'm talking like, people in the marketing departments who do not know how to market. Fundamentally, do not know how to do that job. But they're there, and in some cases have been promoted because, they've been around for like 20. You have anybody at your office like that? It's like, this guy's been around for 20 years. We should promote him. It's like, yeah, but, he doesn't know how to be a nuclear scientist. It's like, yeah, but tenure. I mean, come on. That's insanity thinking. So I see a lot of people often speculating and pushing on comics to say, to want to assign motive behind a lot of these actions. But the simplest answer is often the easiest one, which is this person's just not capable of doing the job they've got. Whether it's this person is put in a high profile writing position but can't meet deadlines and has never really completed a major story structure and constantly has to have ghostwriters come in to help them because they fall behind. And you say to yourself at some point, like, hey, maybe it's time to, back Dan Slott off some of those high profile titles and, wait for him to kind of get his shit together before, maybe you don't throw Dan Slott on 2 books. If he has trouble getting scripts in on time, maybe you stick with 1 book. Just spitball it here. Like, with that exact situation right there, again, taking the quality completely out of it. If you've got a guy that has trouble meeting deadlines on 1 book, who is the moron who's like, I know, let's put him on 2 books, and let's put him on 2 high profile books that we want to succeed, big important titles. Who's doing that? Same thing. You put an artist. I like Paul Pope an immense amount. Love the guy. If you're an editor and you put Paul Pope on like a monthly book, I mean, what? Come on, you're not good at your job. He's not going to be able to do a monthly book. I think he would tell you he's not able to do a monthly book. So, what are you thinking? It's fun to sometimes speculate on evil, and I know some of the people who in the comments will make the case for evil. But the case I'm making right now is, regardless of evil or incompetence, they shouldn't have the job. If you hate Trump right now, here's a thought for you. If you think he's incapable of doing the job, it doesn't really matter how evil a guy is or isn't or what, he's not capable of doing the job. The end. You see Biden give some speeches, and it's like that guy's not good at some of those speeches. Like he seems very confused. Maybe don't put him in that position. I don't know. Again, just throwing ideas at the wall here. Maybe you don't do that. Certainly, we can make the case that he's part of the Illuminati and everything else. But it's like, but if he's wandering around the stage looking to shake hands with invisible people, like, come on. We can go into the conspiracy stuff, but there's a certain like barrier to entry that isn't being passed here. I think that sums up the U.S. presidency for quite some time, actually. Anyway, I'll stop here, but look, that's my take on it, and I guess I'll ask a question in return, and maybe some people in the comments can answer it. Why do you need it to be evil? So I get this kind of question a lot from people. They'll write in and they'll say, why won't you just admit that people are, evil, maniacal, hateful people, and they're out to destroy everything? Why do you excuse it as they're not capable of doing their job? And I every time I read that, I'm like, does it matter? I mean, seriously, does it matter at all? Because same result. The same result is they shouldn't have the job. They shouldn't be doing the job. Is it better to fire somebody for malfeasance than incompetence? I'm honestly asking. I maybe it's just my nature. I'm a very pragmatic person, and I look at this and I go, goal number one: get the person out of the position. The reasons for it? I mean, you could play around with that later if you like, but stop. If the patient comes in bloody, stop the bleeding. It's like, dude, this is triage time. At the emergency room, when they bring in somebody who's been shot up with a gun and they're like, oh shit, this person's bleeding out on the floor, you don't go, we really need to identify the intent of the person who shot this individual before we stop the bleeding. It's like, no, save the patient, dumbass. Anyway, that's my take on it. I respect that many of you have a different take on it. That's certainly your business, but that's me explaining mine. So thanks for listening.